And today I'm going to talk about some of the cool problems, some of the cool uh, features, issues in the industry, real world industry uh, issues that we are dealing with right now. So you guys can recognize some of the area that you guys have opportunity to develop your skills and get better, and hopefully that helps you find job on those areas. So a little bit about myself. I graduated from Southern Illinois University, Carbondale, in 2015 in electronic and computer engineering, and I found a job as a software developer on 2015, and then I got promoted to director of IT on 2016, and 2018 I got promoted to kind of a VP of engineering, and 19 I got promoted to chief technology officer. Um, for some of you guys might be, this might be a little bit weird, but we had a small company, a smaller company, and in a small company, the opportunities are too much, right? I mean, the issues are too much, the problems are too much, and if you can solve it, you have opportunity to grow so fast. So I experienced so many challenges in our industry that I'm going to share some of them with you today. So for some of you guys might be, interesting. You might find it interesting. As Brian mentioned, I'm a best friend of Ali. So we started our education together on Southern Illinois University, and we graduated. I mean, I graduated. Ali continued his PhD, but I basically stopped at master. I got into industry. So today I'm gonna talk about two different subjects for you guys. One is the cloud computing and why it is necessary for industries, especially a small business, to invest on cloud computing. And the second topic is how we can apply good practices on software development. So can somebody confirm that you guys can see my screen? And you guys should see the first slide on cloud computing. Can somebody confirm that for me?
Oh, yes, we can see the screen.
Okay, sounds good. All right. The first topic that I want to talk with you guys. First of all, I really love the interaction in presentation. So I don't want to be a solo speaker here. So whenever you guys, any of you had question or anything, and you wanted to know more about topics, because obviously I'm not able to cover everything in 1 hour. So whatever you wanted to know more, raise your hand or ask question. I would be more than happy to answer. So the first question is, why cloud computing, right? Why should we do that? Why, most of the companies before 2000, before year, 20, 2000, I want to say, most of the companies were on on-prem solution. What made companies to start looking at cloud computing? What was the reason? I'm gonna speak about my company, right? When I got into the company, we were operating in one single server, one single system, right? Before that, actually, I would like to give you guys a little bit background about our company. So we are in HomeWave. What we are doing, we are providing communication services for correctional facilities, for jail, prisons. We are providing video visitation, uh, voice voice communication, a couple of education platform that we are providing for inmates to first educate and second communicate with their loved ones. So in 2015, when I joined the company, we had a bunch of challenges, right? At that time, cloud computing and cloud concept was not that popular, right? I mean, people were a little bit hesitant, especially in the executive level. People were not really sure if they have to invest on cloud computing. So why today all of the companies accepting cloud computing more and more, and invest on it more? So I'm just want to talk about my company in particular. So a couple of things that I mentioned, that I listed here: scalability, right? When I joined this company, we were on a single server, so our company had a huge challenge that the system was not scalable, right? I mean, we could do X amount of business with X amount of client, and when a new client joined, the system doesn't have capacity, right? So it could not keep up with the traffic that we had at that time. So at that time, we thought, all right, so one server, one solution, on-prem solution cannot be scalable for us, right? So what can we do to scale our system, and how can we grow our business, right? So at that time, we had multiple options. We had an option to add more and more and more servers, which requires more and more staff, require more and more backups, maintenance, so much other security, so much other stuff, or we had an option to rely on big companies like AWS to handle like cloud computing and cloud platform for us, and rely on them to handle this for us, right? It is essential for the small companies like us that we do not have like 2,000, 3,000 staff to handle each specific and each like particular job in our company, right? So it would be very beneficial for small companies like us to rely on cloud services to handle some of the stuff. So scalability definitely was something that was very interesting for us. Data storage, right? Like as you go ahead.
Oh,
Question?
excuse me, Morteza.
Sure.
I think I'm still in the slide number 1. I wonder if you are sharing the right screen.
Hold on 1 second. Give me 1 second. Let me. All right. How about now?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Okay. Let me go to the next slide. Make sure you see. Can you see?
Yes.
I'm changing a slide.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So scalability was one thing. Data storage is another thing. So if we wanted to stay on-prem, we had to add more and more SSDs, more and more hard drives, more and more backup, right? And assume one of these, when we have hardware failure, right? What's gonna do? What should we do, right? In a small company like us at that time, like data loss was not something that we could afford, right? It was essential for us to store data safe, right? We could not afford losing any data. Data storage was something, that we had option to keep adding more storage, or using a dynamic platform like AWS S3 which is like basically indefinite, right? I mean, you can you can add as you go, right? Data security of since we are working with government, security was like one of the most important thing for us, right? Making sure that nobody can have access to our data, especially the PII, which was very important for us, right? On some of the calls that we are making in our system, it should be HIPAA compliant, right? How we can adopt that compliance in our system. Data security was important. There were no way, when I was comparing, when I was making decision on 2016 to move to cloud, I was thinking, all right, can we ever provide security that AWS can bring for us with all of the tools that they have? Absolutely not, right? Accessibility. Like let's say the company is in fire, all of the hardware burn, and we have on-prem solution, right? Basically the whole system shuts down, right? And worst scenario is you have all of your backup and everything in house, everything all burned together, and you don't have system anymore, right? So the accessibility would be zero. You guys are probably familiar with AWS region and availability zone, and you know how that works, right? The way that AWS changed the availability zone and region is amazing. So AWS guarantee 99.999% availability, which basically guarantee the customers that, if anything happened to one of the data center, they basically can reroute all of the traffic to their other data centers, since they have redundancy. And just to be clear, I'm not basically advertising anything on AWS. I'm generally talking about all of these giant cloud provider. It can be Microsoft, it can be AWS, it can be any other platform. more talking about the cloud solution. The other thing was maintenance, right? Maintenance is always is a very important thing for all of the company, right? How you maintain all of your hardware, how you have to have a very skilled staff to maintain everything that you have, all of the system, and also you have to keep upgrading them, right? Because the hardware that you have right now might be totally useless and obsolete in 3 years from now, especially in this crazy electronic business, right? So loss prevention, I already talked about it. And the last thing is cost, right? Cost is a challenge. Whenever you're thinking about, let's say, having everything on perm and having everything in house, you have to invest on a lot, in maybe $1 million, even for a small company, to just bring the hardware on site, versus spending, spending going into with the SaaS model with these companies like AWS or Microsoft, to rely on them, and basically you're leasing or you're renting their equipment, right? And that's more suitable for many companies that they cannot afford investing that much capital in the hardware and in the solution. So I mean, in general, I mean, we're talking about a risk, how much risk it is for business. Let's say you invest $1 million in all of the hardware, then you figure out it's not a good, solution for you. What do you want to do now? So, what do you want to do with all of those investment? But it is very easy in the cloud environment. Then if one type of server is not suitable for you, you immediately terminate all of those and go with another different type of solution. Or you want to use a service today and you don't want to use that service tomorrow, right? You release that service and you don't pay for it anymore, and you don't stock with all of the hardware or solution that you have. Flexibility, very important. I mean, I just want to go back to that, the scalability that we talk, right? Let's say today we're a small business, right? We want to start with like a very small server. Tomorrow, like a year from now, our solution get bigger. We have more users. We have more traffic in the system. We can easily change the type of our resources that we are using in cloud environment, and basically very smoothly switch our business to a more powerful solution without making so much change on site, right? And that's another benefit of cloud solution for us. Redundancy, I talked about it. There's a great solution of backup in a different zone, different environment, in a separated environment, separated account that you have, which increase the liability of your solution by far. So I'm gonna stop here. I want to ask if anybody has any question before I continue. Anybody has any question?
Yes, actually, Neil has one question.
Please.
So he has left a message in the chat. So what are some of the challenges of your migration journey to the cloud, and how did you overcome them?
Okay, that's a very valid question. Actually, we have a bunch of challenges, especially, I mean, when you're talking about migration, you have to think about the whole service, right? You have to talk about database, you have to talk about app server, you have to talk, if you do any data analysis, excuse me, you have to talk about that, you have to talk about DNS, you have to talk about everything that you want to migrate. And also you have to make sure that you cannot tell your clients that, hey, I want to shut down my business and for months, and I want to migrate everything from on-prem to cloud, so you guys wait, right? Our client, we have a concept of SLA in our industry, which is our commitment to our client. So we tell our client that, hey, we guarantee that you guys are not going to be down for more than 2-3 hours, right? So that commitment make us very very careful about what we want to do, so we cannot have too much interruption. So regarding the migration, you have to, here is the strategy I took at that time. I said, we have a working solution right now. we will get a copy. Actually, at that time, we were lucky because our system was not huge like what we have, because especially regarding data, right? Because some of the challenges that I see companies like ATT and Verizon have, because they are still half cloud, half on-prem, and they're kind of stuck because they have a huge data. And just to let you know, I was reading it a couple of years ago that Amazon are sending a snowmobile to one of these big businesses. It's a big truck of storage that they're with a very huge capacity Ethernet cable that they connect to their all of their on-prem servers to transfer all of the data. At that time, we didn't have that much data. What my strategy was, we made an exact copy of the solution that we had in our on-prem, and we mirrored it exactly on the cloud with a different DNS, right? We had, let's say, we had homewave.com pointing to our production on our on-prem server, and then we created like not a staging, something like demo-homewave.com on the cloud version, and we copied the exact app instance to that. We created a snapshot of our database to the AWS, and I'm saying AWS because we use AWS. And when we were 100% sure that the solution is working, after doing a full QA on the new environment, we created a replica of the database and we transferred from the previous solution to a new solution, and we adjust the DNS to point to the new service. So basically, homewave.com was pointing to the cloud environment. Did I answer your question, or you had you were pointing at something else?
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you. I was just I'm always interested to know about the challenges that companies go through when they decide to, when they decide to migrate.
Again, that's a very good question. Again, like you have to be very careful about a couple of things about data, because data is today, data is, for the company, data is even more important than their revenue, because data is the most valuable asset for every company. So losing data or basically manipulating data, all of those other stuff are unacceptable. They're not acceptable. So you have to make sure when you transfer everything is seamless. So you have to have a very solid solution for the migration. You have to make sure that everything is thought through and everything is in the process. You don't want to move your database when you don't have your app server running. This is a failure from the scratch, and you don't want to get into it. So yeah, I mean, you have to make sure that everything is functional before you migrate.
And was your migration done from your guys's team, or were you using Amazon's like infrastructure engineers to help you with the migration?
No, it was with our team. The good thing about these big solutions is they are providing you a very good migration tools, right? And I mean, at that time I had a DevOps engineer which was heavily involved on this project, but I know that we used so many of the AWS migration tool at that time, which helped us a lot on for this migration. But we did it with our own team, to answer your question.
Cool.
Okay. Any other question? So, future of IT, guys. I don't want to talk about cliche or other stuff that you guys all can read. I just want to tell you some of the stuff that I'm dealing with them right now. Ali probably knows the best because he was also working in our company a couple of years ago, and he knows exactly what I'm talking about. So here is the industry trend, guys. These are the 4 topics that I want to say. It has a huge value right now in the current market. Machine learning, absolutely. So with the use of machine learning, you can ML is playing a big role these days in almost each and every industry, right? How we can deploy it. I just want to make an example how it can help us, right? So I cannot talk about exactly what we do in our industry, but in our company, but I just want to make you an example. Let's say you build a platform. You build a platform that do like authentication for you, right? Authentication is very important, especially in our system, right? How can we adopt like all of these AI tools, how we train them, how we train the system to be more accurate over the time, right? Let's say we start authentication. We ask all of these inmates for logging into the system, right? We build a piece of software to authenticate each inmate and make sure that when they are logged into the system, they're authenticate. We are actually reviewing their identity, right? If we build a system right now in our industry that can help take all of the fraud off in fraud on using the depositing funds, fraud on authentication, fraud on all of these things, right? And over the time, we use machine learning to train our data set and basically create a trend, create a tool for all of, especially for the admin and for the system to make a decision based on the result that would be extremely helpful. That can cut that can actually protect our assets, that can I want to say cut so many of the fraud that is happening, and that can improve the system in general, right? Our company is investing lots of money these days on machine learning and how we can adopt the new tools that we are creating. We train our data set because we have data, how we can use our data to make the system more smart, right? So machine learning is absolutely is a hot topic there. AI, artificial intelligence is something that's out there for years, but it's never get outdated. It just get better and better, right? In our industry, authentication, as I mentioned again, is a huge thing, right? If you can create AI, let's say like a voice biometric or face authentication, right? If we can validate the user by face with the good accuracy and then let them log into the system, or use voice biometric to ask them to say a couple of words and then have them as another layer of security, that would be perfect. Or another thing that I wanted to say is, like, in our system, if the AI tool comes in and look at we build an AI tool to maybe rectify and recognize like a abnormal trend or activity or anomaly in the system, and alert all of the admins or users about that would be absolutely valuable. The other topic is security. Security is absolutely important. You guys know, with the today's IT industry, security is number one, right? If you don't secure your platform, you may not take long in this industry. I'm just making an example. In our company, we are investing lots of money in security because a good portion of our revenue actually. But we know if we don't, secure our platform, then if we have a ransomware, or if we have a unauthorized user or unauthorized use of data, or any of those, that can easily take the whole business down very quick, guys. So if you guys don't take security seriously, take it serious right now. Because if you don't, and you say, hey, you know what, I accept the security vulnerabilities, but we're going to work it tomorrow. No, I mean, that's not a good practice. You always have to make sure this is always a manifest. It's always in top of your list whenever you do anything, from the software development to everything else, from the back end to front end to whatever you're working, database. If you're a DBA, everything is security is important everywhere. And one of the things that makes this cloud solution like AWS beautiful is the security that they're having. And finally, automation. Automation is very important these days. What all of the industries, all of the companies looking for is how they can manage their budget, how they can cut some of their costs that they're spending. So they have two options: adding more and more staff, or use more and more scripting. I just want to make an example. When our company hired Ali, and he can also make a comment on that. When our company hired Ali, the first mission for Ali was to automate one of the manual thing that they were doing. So we had a huge issue and blocker in our configuration process of each kiosk, which was taking like 2 hours. And what Ali built before he leaves our company, he created a platform for us, automated platform that could configure like 60 devices in like a couple of hours, right? Basically increase the efficiency by 60 times, right? These are very important because it can help companies a lot to save money and also be more efficient and spend their money on improving the system. Any questions so far?
Morteza, I think Neil has another question. Is
Go ahead.
actually a good question. What data do you keep on premise, and why did you decide to keep in-house? So yeah.
So currently we do not store anything on-prem, nothing, zero. We have everything on cloud. And that was basically my decision on going back to 2016. And the main reason was security and redundancy, because so we are collecting PII, we are collecting some of the confidential information that we have to extremely be worried about protecting them. And at that time, the protection that we in very small company, very short staff could provide was not even close to what we wanted. Also, on the other thing is, some of these RFPs that they were coming, they were asking for all of the security measures, for redundancy, for backup, and we didn't have them, but we could easily have them with the cloud solution. So we could easily, like with couple of configuration, we could have it on AWS, creating backup every hour on database, on app server, on AMI. So we create AMI of the system every whatsoever every hour. So today we do not have anything on-prem anymore, and I am extremely satisfied about the decision we made at that time. And yeah, that's it. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So I'm gonna wrap up. I'm not gonna talk about this cloud anymore. I just want to tell you guys interesting. I guess this part would be more interesting for you guys. Software development best practices, guys. When I joined this company 2015, I want to ask you guys, guess how we were developing our platform. Anybody want to take a guess? I want to see what you guys think. How we were doing our software development on 2015. Any idea?
Can you repeat the question?
My question is, let's say you join a company, which I joined in 2015. Like, what do you think would be the basic model of web development? Like how you do that? So you're working for a company, all right, and you have a boss, and you're like 3 people. Your boss asks to develop a feature. How you develop it? All right, so I guess no guess. So on 2015, when I joined this company, the way that it was working was our CEO of a company. At that time, our company was only 3 people. We are 85 right now. At that time, our CEO was emailing our developer, say, hey, we need this feature, and the developer push it directly to production. And then we have lots of problem. The whole system goes down, right? And then we come back and fix bugs. So the whole system goes down and nobody can use the system, right? That's a horrible practice. In these days, software development practices, this is horrible. So you never can touch the production that often, right? There should be a process. There should be a procedure for that, right? one thing that I worked on that really hard on creating a procedure and what we should do actually to prevent those challenges, those issues, right? You don't want to push something to production and everything goes down, right? That's bad. So software challenges. So the best thing you want to do on software, I'm talking about very high level. I'm not talking about only development. I want to say there should be a process. Process is the first thing, right? So every feature that you guys want to develop, it should be planned first. So the product team in each company, what they do is they create an idea, right? Hey guys, like there is a challenge here that we need to overcome. We need to fix this, right? That's just an idea. That idea should go into planning, and so many other stakeholders should be involved to talk and think about the solution. That solution can go to the idea board. Idea board turns into the a sprint planning, and a sprint from there the machine start working, the development start working, and after 2 weeks when the development is done and QA is done, then it gets ready for the release, and then after the release you have retrospective meeting to talk about the increments. So the first thing is a CAP process, right? So change advisory board, for the people who don't know what that means, that's part of the ITIL best practices. So ITIL is information technology. I actually forgot what it exactly stands for, but ITIL is a set of rules that you have to follow to make sure that you are following best practice on software development, right? Change advisory board. So you have to explain, all right, now I want to develop 10 features, right? Why I want to do the 10 features, why I want to develop 10 features, what is the business model for that, what is the reason that I'm developing it, what is the impact for the business, what is the risk for the business if I develop this, how much risk company take, right? How much impact it brings to the product. If I do this, what is my plan for development, how I want to develop it, what my plan for testing is. So these are all fit into ITIL best practices and change advisory board, which has to be done in the cooperation between software development team and product team to figure out all of those stuff before the stuff even want to get to development. Everything should be very straightforward and very clear for all of the developers and product team and entire company to understand what's the goal. What is the goal of developing this product, instead of just having a subject and I started working on it. You know, as a developer, you don't know what you're doing, what's the goal for it. You might not come up with a good product because you don't know what you're doing and what's the benefit of it. You just built something that you don't have any insight. With these practices, everyone from product to software developer come together to understand what the subject is, what the goal is, what the sprint wants to do, what would be the definition of success. So each sprint, which consists of 2 weeks, actually tells you that what the goal is and how we can be successful. So the entire team cross-functionally should work with each other to define those values. So going back to the subject that I talked about about how we were developing on 2015, I said we have to stop that. So I immediately stopped that process. I said the first step would be we have to create a staging environment. We have to create a staging environment. We have to push all of our tests there, and then from there, when we tested, we QA, then we move it to production. That was the very first step because I couldn't build like an entire well-oiled machine platform at that time because we had interruption in the service. So I had to go step by step. So I created the staging first, and then I said, okay, I mean, a staging is also not enough, right? So then, I got one step even further. I said, I want to create each branch for unit testing. So basically, if I want a feature, if let's say product team come back and say, hey, fix my login page. Okay, I create a cut a branch, a stack, a server from a working solution, which is a staging. You guys are all familiar with Git, right? So you basically create a branch from a staging, and then you start working on only on that particular feature, only on that particular feature. And when whatever you develop on that feature, that is solely for web developers, solely for software developers. So you as a software developer, you have the ownership of that. You can do whatever you want. Nobody's going to ask you a question. But whenever you want to push it, whenever you want to merge it, right? When the release manager asks you, hey, developer number one, I want you to push your code for testing, right? From then, when you push your code for testing, it comes to you basically create a pull request. All of the items go there, and it's gonna be reviewed. And after reviewing, if it passed, if not, it goes back to development. If it passed, finally it goes to a staging. And whenever it comes to a staging, one step before releasing to production is QA. Guys, QA is a very, very, very important process in software development. I just want to tell you guys, if you look at QA as a blocker or monster in your process, or like a complainant that always come back and throw something at you, always embrace it, always appreciate it. Don't look at it as a blocker, something that prevent you from being fast. That's absolutely not a fact. From me that working in the industry for like 8 years, I'm telling you, whenever you are a software developer, you push something to production environment without QA, and if you fail, all of the blame would be on you, right? Because your software was not tested correctly. So we have this QA, very important process to take that liability off of your shoulder, right? It's not your responsibility anymore. You create a product, right? You pass it to different team to test what you did with a different angle, with a checklist, with looking at it as a whole system, and then come back to you with all of the comments. Hey, you have to change this, you have to do that because it has conflict with other features, right? So QA is very important. We have different type of QA testing. You have penetration testing, which basically check all of the codes that you made to make sure there is no holes in a code, right? There is no like, I just want to make an example. If you hardcode your database credential in your source, right? How you want to catch that? Let's say a developer hard-coded database credential in your source code, and for some reason your code exposed. You basically expose your entire system and database. So if you have a QA look at your code and say, hey, why did you do that? I could penetrate your, I could look at your code and I could access your database. You have to fix that. Then you say, okay, I have to maybe use a keychain. Maybe I have to use a encryption. I have to use something that prevent that. So penetration test is a security check. Regression test is a full test of the system when all of the stuff merged together. Let's say there were 10, 20 pull requests comes at the same time, and the release manager asks for all of those to merge into staging. There would be a full regression test to look at the system as a whole, and then and make sure that one system doesn't break the other. And let me tell you this, I faced this issue many times that look great, looks clean, all right? It goes to production, it totally breaks something totally unrelated. So, the first couple of years I was saying, oh, like what is going on? Like I changed something totally unrelated. I pushed it to production. Why it broke something in totally unrelated environment? That always happen, guys. That always happen in a complex system. When you're working as a developer, you have to make sure that anything that you push, even in one line of code, can potentially break the whole system. So you have to consider your code to be tested for regression tests as a whole. Load testing is important because you want to make sure that the piece of code, let's say, I just want to make an example. Let's say you want to improve the system, right? Very basic. You have a heartbeat that check every 2 minutes for some event, right? But your client come and say, hey, I don't want to wait 2 minutes because it's too much. Like, let's say you're sending a signal or something, connection signal, whatever, and it takes 2 minutes. It can potentially interrupt the call, right? Your client come and say, hey, I don't want it. I want a 30-second. Okay, so your first option would be, all right, let me change the heartbeat from 2 minutes to 30-second, right? And you push your code. So when the load testing comes in, when your load tester tests your application, they say, we see like 4 times bigger load in our database. Of course, yes, because your database is, your API is calling 4 times more. You decrease it from 2 minutes to 30 seconds, right? So you have more load in the system. So if you push this to production, you have a huge spike in all of the resources, and that may end up breaking your system. So load test is also important. We have last thing, smoke testing. Smoke testing is very important. The key of a smoke testing is a smoke test should not exceed 1 or 2 hours. A smoke test is a very, very quick test that you do right after release. So after release, all of the very main functionality that keep the system, maybe 4 or 5 or 6 items that system cannot survive without those. They have to be tested through the QA process and make sure that they are checked. The result of a smoke test define if you need to roll back your release or the release was successful or not. And one thing that you need to do, let's say everything goes well from the QA to release and everything, then of course the development team and product and all of the stakeholders have to have another meeting named retrospective meeting that they all have to come together and talk about what they learned, what went wrong, what was good, what was bad, how they can fix it, how they can improve the process. Remember, this only happened if you had a good release. If you had a bad release, roll back, that none of this is going to happen, and you going back to the first square, getting ready for a new sprint. Any questions so far? Does that make sense? What I'm talking? I don't want to be a solo speaker, so if it doesn't make sense, let me know, guys.
It makes perfect sense so far. Thank you, Morteza.
Okay. So, guys, I'm again. I know we don't have much time, so I'm gonna talk about the stuff a little bit faster. So SDLC, what is SDLC? Software Development Life Cycle, right? This might be a very familiar term for most of you guys. So we talked about all of them, right? Number one, planning. I talked like product team and developers should come together to plan about what they want to do. Second, they have to analyze it. We have, if you guys hear a concept of a Scrum, so you have the Scrum meetings to actually you have the sprint planning sessions to talk about analyzing all of the items, all of the backlog that created for development, and then the next step after that would be designing all of this development. You as a developer heavily involved in that process because it's your responsibility to say, hey, product team, because in most of the company, guys, I mean, you are a technical person for that company. They don't know, like the CEO doesn't know how you want to design it, right? So if they say, hey, I want you to change the structure of everything and I have 2 days, then you have to raise a flag, say, hey, the design of this, let's take more than that. You can't have it. So this is a very, very, team effort between product development stakeholder to talk, plan, analyze, and design what needs to be done. And then when it gets to implementation, means all of the checkboxes checked. Everyone is on the same page. Stakeholder expectations are set. The items are exactly designed for what they want to be developed. And then you, as a developer, you are solely responsible for implementation. Nobody should interact with you I mean, when I'm saying interact is nobody should basically come and micromanage it. I'm telling you guys about my experience. I never go and talk with developers how you want to do this. or you want to do that. You want to give a little bit initiative to the developer. Of course, developers will be monitored and guided by lead developer and a scrum master, but development is all yours. You take your initiative at this stage, right? But remember, you made commitment on at the first of the planning. You made commitment on the analysis stage. You said, hey, I feel like I can design it in 2 weeks. That's your word. That's your commitment. So everybody expects you to finish it. So always be realistic, always be reasonable. When you want to implement something, when you have a task, make sure you clearly analyze it. Make sure you have an understanding of what you want to do. Talk with people. Don't be afraid of asking a question. And then make sure when you start writing your first line of code, you exactly know what you want to do. I mean, as a developer, you probably know, like when there was a situation when you wanted to write a code, you couldn't wait to get into the code and start, writing your code. But on the other hand, I was in a situation that I wanted to do something I didn't have any idea what I want to do. That's bad. That's red flag. Never get into that situation. You have to know whatever you need to know. And then as we talked, we have testing and integration. As I talked about the QA process and maintenance, we have to maintain our product. We have to make sure what we released, we also maintain it. We have to monitor it. Monitoring comes into the maintenance step. So guys, what would be the best way? I talked about all of this good stuff. Then how we can implement it? What is the methodology of it, right? There are a bunch of stuff that we need to do, and we have short period of time. How can we do it? So on 2001, a group of 17 best developers around the world came together. They said, all right, we are sick of this heavily involved process, documentation, stakeholder meetings, all of these stuff that takes so much time. And then what happens is you end up with a release that has 100 items and you only can do it once a year. That's a red flag. You're taking company to the risk. How you can overcome to the situation, how you can make like 2 releases, like 1 release every 2 weeks, right? Here is the concept of agile comes in. You guys probably heard of agile. The agile says, let's do individual and interactions over process and tools. Let's working software over comprehensive documentation. Let's involve customer in the product development. Let's respond to the change over following a plan and be more flexible to make change, right? This is a concept of agile. Most of the companies were on waterfall development methodology. Older company. Waterfall, you guys, if you guys are familiar, if not, waterfall is traditional solution for web development, which had huge structure, huge documentation, very through process, and very heavy and involved releases, right? And it's the problem with waterfall is it extremely not flexible, very solid, right? If you want to, it's not responsive to the changes. If your client come back and tell you, hey, what you developed is not what I wanted, then you have to go through another heck of a process to gather documentation, talk with a million people, get a structure in place, everything. So these developers came in and say, hey, let's rip that band-aid off. Let's come up with a good solution that overcome all of these issues. And that solution was agile. I'm telling you guys, we didn't have time for me to go and bring all of the statistics for you, but agile is definitely the future of all of the tech companies. Because if they adopt agile, their efficiency is proven overall goes up by to 65 people. 65 person, I'm sorry. So what agile does is say, hey, let's create a smaller releases in a smaller time with process, with the feedback of the client and customer. So basically, in a very, very simple terminology, the agile says, hey, if you want to develop something, pick 5 from your product department, pick 5 items maybe, right? And let's plan that for 2 weeks every day in a Scrum meetings. In that 2 weeks, you have to show up in a meeting, in a 10 minutes meeting with a product team to talk about your progress. If you have any blocker, so your Scrum and your product should overcome that problem for you. And you commit that after 2 weeks, you have a delivery that you can push. So your product is way smaller. So if something goes wrong, troubleshooting would be easier. Also, you're so flexible. If you wanted to change something, you could easily adopt it in the process. So they come up with the 12 principle, which they call it Manifesto for Agile Software Development. You guys can search for it, and it's online. I'm not going to read all of this, but this is a foundation of Agile methodology. So it is only 12 items. I highly recommend you guys go and read about this. So here is the difference between waterfall and Agile solutions. On waterfall, we have a pyramid shape that it goes from top person, project manager, all the way down. And remember, like, keep in mind, if something want to change at the bottom, it should cascade all the way to top and then come back all the way down. And that's a huge time-consuming process. Agile, everyone work in a circle. Very, very collaborative environment. Facilitator, which is like a Scrum Master or a lead developer or VP of engineering or whomever, facilitate the circle and let this wheel rolling. So assume this as a wheel, right? So let's say you have a tire which is in triangle shape and you have a tire which is in circle. Which one can roll better? Of course. So our company was definitely on waterfall. I pushed it to Agile. We are still in Vagile. Vagile is something that, you want to really push toward Agile, but you can't. You always have a blocker. But I'm really, this was actually a first year that I could implement the Agile process. We are releasing every 2 weeks, and so far we got a very, very good result out of it. So yeah, that was my. I guess I'm done with my presentation, so I will leave. I actually gonna pause this and ask if you guys have any question about anything I spoke so far.
Thank you, Morteza, for your excellent presentation. Any questions? Actually, Neil. Appreciate Neil. Neil has a question. What process did you use to track the project progress? For example, traffic light reports.
So if you're talking about project management, I mean, Atlassian product is a very famous product in the market. So most of the company use Jira. We are using Jira as well for project management. We are using Jira. We are using Confluence. We are using so many connections between actually a repository. We are using Bitbucket for a repository. We are connected a repository to our the Atlassian product. So there's a very good dynamic. And let me tell you this. Actually, that's a very good question. It's very important for us with a technical mentality to make sure that whatever we create, it's a dynamic environment. If we create a district solution, let's say you have one thing for project management and one thing for your repository and one thing, so you have to go back and forth. People don't like to log into multiple software, don't like to do multiple things. If you go to your you want to create a well-oiled machine, and that's what the API concept is, right? You jump from this to the other solution, jump from that to the other solution. So right now, I connected our Bitbucket to our Jira, to our Confluence, to our status page, to our, and then I connected my Bitbucket to SonarQube. I got the SonarQube from Ali. Ali recommended that. Before that, I was using a Slink. But so you want to create a dynamic environment. I feel like there's so much value for automation. And one of the, like when I talked about the QA, automation is extremely valuable. And if you can build your test automation using Jenkins, Bamboo, or some of those other software into the process, create a test rail based on that. The value of your software, SDLC, would be huge, and you basically oil this machine very well, and that can run way better. So.
Yep. Thank you, Morteza, for your answer. Any final question? Okay, thank you, Morteza. This is a very wonderful presentation on, especially in information technology and systems, and both cloud computing and the modern way of the project management using the real examples. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And we are actually, School of Technology Computing uses the Jira and Confluence in some of our courses, and it just reinforced that we are in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely. You are in
Great.
the right direction for sure.
Great. Thank you, Morteza. Thank
Of
you again
course.
for your passionate talk, and we look forward to connect with you in the near future.
Absolutely. My pleasure. All right, guys. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
So nice.